Alrighty, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Back to Victory and Glory, the American Civil War. This is your host, ID Jester again. This is just alpha product right now of this wonderful program. So keep in mind things may change before final release. Just trying to give everyone a quick intro to the system and how everything plays so they can be familiar with it when it does finally release. You'll have a nice series to go back and look at, and so you can figure out how to play this game so you're ready to go when the final release does happen. So, we're going to be talking about part two this time, and this is going to be the turn overview. So, let's go ahead and jump right into the game and talk about the turn overview. So here we are back into the actual game, and you can see here we have a nice, wonderful map. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner is actually a mini map that you can use to select different locations and quickly jump to it. Back and forth if you wanted to look at a certain region. Of course, you can also use your scroll button on your mouse to zoom out a little bit so you have more of an overview. You can use your scroll button to obviously zoom in as well. So on your turn, you're going to be able to select a certain number of armies up to the limit that can be activated for that turn. That is between 3 and 6. You can see down here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have activations remaining 4. So we have 4 activations we can use so we can activate our units. When selected, they can be moved. When moved, you're going to move into a adjacent region. And if an enemy is there, then a battle will be fought. You can also play event cards during your turn. If you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, if my mouse would stop acting all wanky, we have the event cards here. We can click on them. And you can see there is our different event cards that we can play to get different reinforcements or different special events, different things that will help us win for our side during this conflict. So you can see here Lincoln gives an inspirational speech, but of course each of them have little text, so this can only be played after the Union is defeated in a major battle. So it will up the Union determination increase by 5%. And there's all kinds of different cards which you can access and play those cards when you think the time is right. We talked about this in episode 1, but this little parchment paper, if we click on it, that is our game summary that talks about our will to fight, our side, how well, how much our side is willing to continue in this epic struggle. And you can kind of compare how your side is versus the enemy, plus a lot of other detailed information about different stats and stuff like that. So, all right. So on your turn, you might be able to also recruit new units. Income is going to flow in your treasury from the cities you own, so don't lose them. And from blockade runners for the Confederacy. On your turn, you're going to press the date button down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's going to ask you, do you want to end your current turn? You can accept or cancel. Of course, you can disable this message. I don't like to disable this message because if you accidentally, go to click the event cards, but you miss it by a little bit, and you click on the date and you don't have that message, you'll end your turn a little bit early. So I would recommend you go into the options, turn this on, so you can always, hit escape or cancel on that. Every 2 turns, you'll be able to select one of 2 possible event cards to add to your hand, as long as your capital is not enemy occupied. So make sure you want to hold on to your capital. After your turn is complete, the AI will take their turn, play their cards, you will fight the battles, and that will progress throughout your scenario. All right, on your turn, if you want to select your army, you just simply click on the unit flag. You'll see this blue circle that kind of highlights that unit, and it'll give you a display down at the bottom that has all of the different units that make up that army, all of the different leaders, and all of the different fit units. cavalry units, and of course artillery units, which make up the three different kinds of units that are in the game, and it'll also give you their rank or level. Currently, we have all rank 0 in this army here, and you can see our leader is Banks, and each leader is given a number as well. And in this case, he has a 3. So you can select armies. You can also select multiple army. You can combine armies that are in the same location. If we scroll over here, you can see we have 2 units here in St. Louis. We can click on one of them, and once we hover over the other one, you'll see the mouse hand turn to like a little cross swords, which means it's time to combine these 2 armies into one. And you can see I just did that very simply. If you want to split armies, you can just right click on them, and it'll bring up a nice little split force menu. And then you can pick and choose which units you're going to transfer from one army to the other by just clicking on the unit and then clicking on the little arrow button, and then hit accept, and you will see that the different units will then appear. You will also see the little numbers next to each of the armies to let you know how many units are in that army. So you can see here that this army here has got 5. This army up here has got 6. The little number there on the left-hand side of it shows you the amount of units that are in that army. When it's time to move a unit, you can select it and of course move it into an adjacent region, and it's then ready to go. You can see that this unit is now kind of grayed out. If a unit is grayed out, it means it can no longer move. And this, of course, you play some of the special event cards that allow it to take an extra move. So if it's grayed out like that, that means that unit has been spent. You can also see that our activations remaining has dropped down to 3 by moving that unit. You can see that the very congested area between Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia is kind of difficult to kind of see, but super good for this is you can actually hit the control key on your keyboard, and it brings up a mini map of that area, and that's where you're going to use. That's what you're going to use for the area that goes all the way from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in the north, all the way down to Dansville and Norfolk down in the south. And each one of these different areas will be inside different boxes here, so you can kind of fine-tune your movement a little bit easier in those areas. And that's very popular areas, a lot of battles that are fought during the Civil War, so that's why they do have this very nice mini map, mini display, I guess is the best way to put it. So you can see here that the Confederates actually have a 14 unit army here, moving up towards Washington, D.C., where we have McDowell and his troops there waiting for their arrival. So we will have to counter the Confederacy here, and we've got 3 activations remaining to decide what we want to do about this. If we're talking about naval units, each southern port has a naval box adjacent to it that contains the blockade forces for that port. There's also a naval box in the north, which is up here, for the deployment of new naval units. Warships and ironclads may be freely moved between naval boxes by the Union player on his or her turn. There is a limit of 3 total ships. There is a limit of 3 total moves per ship per turn. The Confederate player may produce ironclads as well. When they are produced, they are immediately deployed in the naval box for that port. If there are no Union ships there, if there are Union ships there, an immediate battle is triggered, and the Confederate ironclad may never move. They must remain in their home port box. And of course, because there are naval units, the armies can move amphibiously from one region with a port to any other region with a port, regardless of the distance. The Union player must have one transport per land unit to be moved. You're going to click on the Army to be moved and into the designated region. And of course, if you move into a region with an enemy, a battle will begin. But there is sometimes where a much larger army will overrun a much smaller army, and there are also times where the enemy will be able to successfully retreat before the battle begins. If neither one of those options happen, then a battle will commence between the two forces in the same location. And as we talked about previously, if you hit the control key on your keyboard, you're going to get a detailed theater map of the Northern Virginia, Maryland, and Southern Pennsylvania area, where both capitals are actually located. This is represented by the special map, which shows these areas in greater detail and also introduces regions and cities which don't fit into the main strategic map and do not appear there for that reason. Well, that's it for the introduction to the process of what happens during a turn. The basic premise is a bunch of activations, moving your forces around, splitting forces, combining forces, moving them into adjacent locations, and of course, trying to find the opportunities to battle your opponent when it's most advantageous for yourself and least advantageous for themselves through either naval transport or strategic transport through the railroad system or through just plain movement on the map. So hopefully that'll give you a good introduction. It goes all the way from the up in the top from Michigan and New York. You can see a little bit of Canada pops up there at the very top, and of course it goes all the way to Florida in the south, as far west as Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Minnesota and Wisconsin. So good detail of the map there, and should bring out lots of opportunities for you. Next episode, we're going to talk about recruiting, the processes as turns go by, dates and seasons, and all the important stuff you need to remember as you progress through your scenario. Hopefully, we'll see you in that episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.